Hello everyone, my name is John Bussart. I'm an HPE Business Transformation Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support HPE servers, blade system storage, as well as Aruba networking technology solutions. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then demonstrate to you what that means within a management context. Today we're going to talk about one of HPE's hyper-converged based solutions, and that solution is the Nimble dHCI platform. All right, so one of the weakest links within a hyper-converged platform will be the software-defined storage. If you don't know what software-defined storage is, basically we're taking local storage across multiple systems and we're grouping that together in a redundant fashion and presenting it back to the VMware environment as shared storage. With a Nimble dHCI solution, the little d stands for disaggregated. And basically what that means is we've pulled out that software-defined storage and we've replaced it with a physical Nimble storage solution with special firmware that'll support a hyper-converged environment. Right? So we don't have any performance limitations that can be found within a normal hyper-converged platform. Another benefit of this solution is I can upgrade compute separately from the storage solution. So if I need more, traditional hyperconverged environment, if I need more compute or I need more storage, I buy the one building block and I add it, and whatever I don't need kind of comes along for the ride. So this gives you a lot of benefits for hyperconverged without losing any of the things you come to expect, like centralized management within an environment. So in this environment, as you'll see, we'll do all our management from within the vCenter context, right? A management interface that we're familiar with. Right. Also, we have quick deployment and expansion times. So I can deploy this solution once it's racked and stacked and all cabled up. I can deploy this solution in about an hour within your environment. I can expand it within less than an hour. So these are all things that we've come to expect out of hyper-converged solutions within an environment. Right. So this is a nice solution. I can even use older ProLiant servers to expand the compute in my environment. So like Gen 9 based systems. I have to install ESX on there. I have to put a special password that'll get changed during the installation process. I also need to put in the ESX host Nimble connection manager, which does some of the multipathing. That's not too hard. That's actually just a command line thing you can cut and paste. As long as the ESX server has a path out to the internet, it'll pull it from the internet and install it. Once that's done, you can use older compute to be able to expand out your dHCI environment. So a lot of flexibility, all the benefits of Nimble, but we're expanding it out to be able to provide a hyper-converged type experience. So with all that being said, let's explore this environment. Okay, here's our Nimble dHCI solution here. I've got a couple ESX hosts that are based off ProLiant DL360 Gen 10 systems. Over here is the back-end storage, the Nimble storage. As you can see, it looks like a normal Nimble storage system. There is special code that's running on this to be able to support a dHCI environment, but you're not going to notice it from this context. Now, the idea is you shouldn't have to really, come into this management interface, but I'll kind of flip over to it to show you some things are happening on the back end, really. But all our management really should be done within the vCenter environment. Now, I will tell you that the management context reminds me a lot of the Nimble plugin in a normal environment. So if you're going to go through the process of installing the Nimble plugin, which is very easy, within a traditional environment outside of dHCI, you're going to notice some of the menu contexts are the same. So for example, if I go up to dHCI cluster and I right-click, and I go down to Nimble Actions, you will see I have the ability to create a VMS data store, create a vval. We could do some extra protection on our data with digest as well as mount there. Now, the plugin gets automatically installed as a part of dHCI deployment, so it's not an extra step. It just gets deployed. But these are the types of things that you will see within the plugin. And as a matter of fact, we could go over to the data store context. I've got one of our dHCI data stores highlighted here. And if I go under Monitor, you'll see I have Nimble Storage here. I got performance, all right, latency, IOPS, throughput, right? I've got connections, who's connected into this environment. You can see the two ESX hosts and who's allowed connection into this environment. So you can see all the hosts, including I got a Veeam backup that goes on this system as well. So we have the ability. We can also look under configure, and we can see the snapshots that exist here. So these are all the snapshots that are taken on the system. Again, we don't necessarily need to go look in the Nimble storage system, but that listing will be the same as if we looked under data storage. This will be my volumes. There's that dHCI volume. Let's go in, and there is our snapshots. Will show up over here. All right, so that gives you a little bit of an idea. I can also right-click on the volume itself, and again, I got Nimble actions that I can perform. Things like edit, delete, clone, grow. All right, and now I'm going to take you into what's more of the dHCI context, and I can get to that through the home menu over here. We'll see Nimble storage here. I could have also just selected it on that menu as well. Right, and up to this point, like I mentioned, everything you've seen, that's a part of the normal Nimble plugin. But once I select my grouping, right, this is a unique dHCI view into the environment. Right, not only do I see performance, latency, IOPS, and throughput, right, but I can see any alarms, recent events, if there's any errors on my systems, compute or storage. Right, what's my utilization of my overall dHCI environment as far as CPU, memory, holistically, as well as storage. Right, and of course I can see my data protection, right, if I'm doing any local snapshots or if I'm replicating any volumes to another site. So we get a good view into that. Right, we could also look at data stores inside of an environment. We got VMS and vVols. This is probably a pretty good way to get involved with vVols if you're looking to explore that. I got mine are all VMFS volumes, and we could see our volumes listed here. Now, one thing I would like to point out that there's 2 volumes here that get provisioned as a part of a deployment. So VMware needs a couple volumes in order to be able to do HA on or to maintain HA consistency in an environment. Some people say, hey, wait a minute, these are about 1 terabyte in size, but keep in mind these are all thinly provisioned within an environment, so we're actually only using this much space on the back end, and as long as you don't do with anything with any of these volumes, they'll stay nice and small in the environment. But again, these should be all the volumes that we see in our environment that are tagged for virtualization. So, for example, if I go back here, and again, we'll go under the management context and data storage to look at our volumes, you'll see anything that's kind of listed as an application, a virtual server will show up in the environment, except for this one here. This one's listed as a file server. So again, one of the benefits of a dHCI environment over traditional hyper-converged, there's nothing stopping me from carving out volumes and presenting them to something like a Windows host. And that's what I have here. And if you pay attention to any of my videos, I just did a few on cloud volumes, and I kind of use this volume to present some of that replication. Right, so we have this inside our environment, right? And again, that won't show up over here. Right, so I can do other things in here. So we'll select the volume. We could edit the volume, grow the volume, delete the volume, take a snapshot, clone it, or even mount an existing volume in the environment. So lots of things that we can do. Some other interesting things. We could go over to inventory, right? And we could select maybe storage. Now we can see the grouping of storage systems in a pool. We can see the individual arrays, any replication partners I have. So I'm replicating to another dHCI environment in our environment. I'm also replicating up to the cloud. Now I don't necessarily need to replicate to another dHCI solution. I can replicate to another Nimble storage array that's out there as long as the code is compatible. And again, I can also replicate this up to the HP's Nimble Cloud volumes. Again, this acts a lot like a Nimble storage system as far as interacting with it. All right, so that's down here. We could also go to inventory and servers. I think one important thing to note here is I can springboard myself off into other consoles. So by clicking over here, you'll see that I've opened up the Nimble management interface. All right, and I have 2 of them open now, so I'm just going to close that. So I can springboard into different things. We could springboard into InfoSet if we wanted to, which is their cloud-based analytics. Right, and this is off in the cloud. We could also look at servers as well. So I'll click on the server context. I could have gotten to this by clicking over here as well. If I wanted to add another server, I could click the plus sign. We could go out and discover one of those systems, Gen 9, Gen 10 based systems we could add into this environment. I think I'll save that for another video. We could do things, if we select systems, we could update the passwords. We could launch the ILO interface if we wanted to. Right, we could springboard into that. Right, but again, most of our management should actually be done within this context. Right, so that's inventory. We could also look at update, which is over here. So the updating process is very easy. You only need to use normal VMware practices around upgrading your vCenter server. So that'll be upgraded separately from this environment. But everything else gets upgraded as a part of their one-click upgrade process. And I've done this upgrade 4 times, and it works very well. And what does get upgraded through this process is the Nimble storage firmware, the ESX code itself, so ESX itself, as well as Nimble, the Nimble Connection Manager, which is that multipathing software. Right, all of that will get updated as long as you have DRS enabled in VMware. It'll do an automated approach to where it'll migrate virtual machines off, put your host in the maintenance mode, do that upgrade, and then obviously move on to the next host. Right, so it's very easy, and this is where you'd find those one-click upgrades. There are other things. We could look at events as well. Right, and this will just be a duplication. If we looked under storage, this will look exactly like this. But again, we don't necessarily want to go into the storage system to get this information. We want to use our own management context over here. All right, so that's just the basic overview of the manage. Again, this context is specific to dHCI. So let's do something kind of useful in this environment. Let's do some basic management. Let's create some volumes and present that into our infrastructure. So first, let's go over to data stores. I'm going to select VMFS down here, and these are all our volumes. Let's add a new volume. All right, so this will be the simplified menu. There is a more advanced menu. I'll show you that in a little bit. So let's start off. Let's create a volume. We'll call it Ingram Micro. We're going to do iSCSI. We're going to select our dHCI data center, and then I'm going to select my dHCI cluster. Now, if you noticed, I have other clusters in here as well. So a part of the dHCI deployment, you can have it deploy a vCenter within your infrastructure, within your dHCI environment. You can also use existing vCenter solutions as well. If you haven't stood up a vCenter, you could add this dHCI nodes to that environment if you wanted to. All right, I have deployed the vCenter within our dHCI cluster, and then I've added some extra clusters into this environment. And if I provision any of the Nimble storage, the Nimble storage will work, but I won't see any of these clusters within the dHCI context to save. So at any rate, this is the cluster we're going to use. Now I get to select the data protection. So not protected, I'm going to select not protected right now. These are snapshot schedules. I'm going to create one for this, right? And then we'll make this 1 terabyte in size, maybe. All right. And then let's scroll down a little bit. Obviously, I got to select the folder location. So this is all I would need, and I click create, and this volume would get created within this environment. Right. Now I'm going to go on to the more expanded options, which gives me more advanced configuration capabilities for this volume. Right, I figure I'd just breeze through this. A lot of the stuff I've already put in has been extended out to this, but here I can add a description if I wanted to. Right. We could click next. My space, whether deduplication enabled, thin or thickly provisioned, what space, my space limit is at. Right, do I want to get notifications a little bit earlier? We can move forward. Here we have a protection schedule, so I set it to no volume collection, but I could join an existing snapshot schedule if I wanted to, or in this case, why don't we create a new one? All right, we could start from a template if we wanted to. I'm not going to do that. We could select the synchronization service. Right down here, let's see, why don't we do 1 for hour? All right, we do every hour except for Saturday and Sunday. We'll start at midnight, and then we'll go to, let's see, 11 o'clock. I'll keep 24 of those around. Oops. All right, we could do replication if we felt like it. Scroll down a little bit more. We'll add another schedule, and this time we'll do a daily snapshot. All right, so we'll do every day, and we won't do them Saturday and Sunday. I'll keep 7 of them around. All right, we could keep on going like this, but at any rate, we're creating this collection. Now I got to give this collection a name. I'll call it Ingram Micro Collection. All right, and then we'll click next. There is a performance policy you could put around this. So if you want to do department chargeback, that's more than just gigabytes or terabytes of space utilized. You could also do some metrics around how many IOPS they get in the environment, or if you've got a very demanding application out there that's hogging its share of performance in the environment, you could go through and limit this. And again, you can limit it based on IOPS, or you can limit it based on throughput if you wanted to. We're going to click next again, and we've got a summary, and I'm going to click create, and we're going to go through the process and create this volume. You'll see some things happening down below. So what does it take to actually create a volume and present it to a VMware environment? So first you need to go on the storage, create the volume, mask it or present it to the two hosts in the array. Then you'll go inside your VMware environment. You'll take one of the ESX hosts. You'll do a rescan HPA. You'll find that volume, format it out for VMFS, right, and to go to each one of your other hosts and then do a rescan HPA. And this is all done for us. If you can see that down here, right, and our volume should show up now. I know it's not here right now, but what we'll do is we'll do a refresh up here, and we can see our Ingram micro volume is showing up here at this time. And again, we shouldn't need to, but we can go into the array itself, and we can see that volume also exists over here. So let's create a new virtual machine on this volume. So I'm going to go over the menu. We're going to select home. I'm going to go over to host and clusters. Right, and down here I have a Ubuntu desktop, about 16 gigabytes. And I'm not going to fast forward this at all. This is going to be all real time. What I'm going to do is right click. I'm going to clone this to a virtual machine. We'll call this Ingram Micro VM. That sounds good to me. All right, we'll click next. All right, we'll put it in our dHCI cluster. We'll click next, and then I'm going to place it on my storage. We'll click next, and then I'll power this on as soon as it's done cloning. Now, because we're dealing with metadata, right, we're not duplicating the blocks, you're going to find that this virtual machine is going to be created really quickly, and we can already see that that's been powered up here. Actually, we'll open up a console to this guy, and we can see the system has booted up. All right, so let's open up an Office, and let's create a document. We'll call it our important info, and we'll click File, and then we'll save as, and we'll put it on our desktop. Call it important. Then I'll click Save. Okay, we'll close that out, and we can see that we have that document over here, so we'll close that out. All right, so now I want to protect myself. Obviously, I would wait for snapshots to kind of roll across, but I kind of want to move this along. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go over the storage context here. Here's our dHCI data store. We want the Ingram Micro data store down here, so I'm going to right-click, go down to Nimble Actions, and then we're going to take a snapshot of this data store, and then we'll call this our snap. And then we'll click Create, and then Close, and then we'll refresh in a little bit. We'll see that that snapshot exists. Now we can go back inside the storage system real quick. We'll select the Ingram Micro over here. We'll look under Data Protection, and we can see that that snapshot exists. But again, we didn't need to do that. There it is. All right, so let's go back over to clusters here, and let's do something dramatic. Let's right-click. We'll go up to power. We'll power this off. Okay. And then I'll click and delete this. We'll click yes. All right, so now that virtual machine is gone, and I want to recover that. So what I can do is I can certainly go down to Nimble Storage, select our storage group. We can go over to data stores. There's our VMFS volume. Right, here's our Ingram Micro volume. Now when I click on this, it's just going to bring me over to the data store, so I could have certainly have gotten here quicker. But if I go under Configure and then Snapshots, you'll see that snapshot exists over here. So I'm just going to click on the Clone button, and then we'll call this our clone volume. We can leave the description the way it is, and then I'll click Clone, and we'll go through the process, and we'll watch this duplicate down here. Now what's going to need to happen is we're going to need to have a resignature of this volume. Because we're taking a duplicate of this volume, VMware is not going to understand if this volume or the original volume is the correct volume for the environment. So what it's going to need to do is go through the resignature, and we could see that happening right now. Now, this is a manual process of recovering our virtual machine data. Certainly, there are tools out there that will automate this process. Something that comes to mind is certainly Veeam would have the ability to reach in and automate some of this. So this is kind of a manual way of doing this, but you can do this. All right, here's our clone volume. It's right here. All right, if I look under virtual machines, there's no virtual machines right now, but I can look under files. Right, and we could see all our virtual machine data, and I have this one lonely virtual machine here. And what I can do is go fish out the VMFX file, select it, and register this VM. We'll click next, next, and then finish. And then we can go over to the host and clusters context, and we'll see our Ingram Micro virtual machine right here. And we'll right click, and I'll power this guy on. And here we have the system itself. So I'm going to open up a console to the system. See that right here. We'll open up our document, and we can see our document is available, and our data is in place. Close that on out. But right now, this still exists on this volume, so I want to do a storage vMotion and move this guy back. So again, this is pretty quick. All right, so just moving metadata pointers around. So I'm going to change storage only. We'll click next. And I'm going to move this into the Ingram Micro folder where it was, or data store where it was originally. I'm going to click Finish. And I'll watch that migration happen. You can see it's already done. You can see that we're already on that volume. Again, this virtual machine is still working. Now, at this point, I can get rid of the old volume that I recovered from. So we'll go back over to Nimble Storage. We'll go inside the group. Data stores, VMFS. Here's our clone volume. So I'm going to take and then delete that. Now, if I want to keep the volume around, just remove it out of the vCenter environment, I would select that button, but I want to get rid of it. I don't need it anymore. So we'll click delete, and then it will go away. So that's some basic management context behind a Nimble dHCI solution. You can see it's easy to manage. There are some benefits to being able to use this as far as a hyper-converged solution. It's centralized. Once you guys get this guy racked and stacked, it'll take about an hour to deploy as well as expand. All your management context is within this interface. You can see I can do most of what I need to do within vCenter. So it's a very easy to use infrastructure. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.